Good morning. Welcome to the Spirit of the Light Church lesson on the patriarchs. The patriarchal culture, for those of you who may not know, are the heads of the family. They're men, of course, and they hold a leadership position in the community, not just the family, and religious practices. This includes economics, disputes, settlements, welfare, and common defense. That means wars, to decide when to go to war and when not to go to war. They, so far as property is concerned, they often receive the double blessing and have the authority that is passed down to them from the previous male patriarch, which is typically and always their father. The firstborn son has the privilege and roles of receiving the inheritance and becoming the head of the family after the father has died. Spiritual leaders within families and tribes who made the covenant with God. And this is what separates a typical patriarch to the patriarchs of the Bible. These men had a covenant with God directly and the lineage of Jesus Christ. So if they don't have the lineage of Jesus Christ, they're not biblical patriarchs. The common theme of the covenants is, if you believe in me, follow me, do as I say, I will bless you over and over and over again. Even when you fail me, I will keep my promise to you. That's a marvelous God, isn't it? The patriarchs we've covered are Adam, the first man, Noah, the first man after the flood. He and his family were the only survivors. And we discussed Abraham and his dynasty, concluding with the 12 tribes of Israel, which was Jacob's renamed new name by God. And now this week, we're going to start the lesson on David, which is the last patriarch before the birth and the becoming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, who came through the line of Judah and David as prophesied and promised by the Lord. Uh-oh. So, David is a man after God's own heart, and we will see a story and learn a story about a flawed man, but a great man with a great heart and faith and courage. God uses imperfect people, people that we don't think are deserving, people that we don't see, but God knows best. God knows the heart of man, and he chose David, and I am so glad he did. He paved the way for our salvation. So we're going to talk about how he was anointed to be king by Samuel, excuse me. He killed the giant Goliath, as many of you may know. He becomes a member of the king's court. He befriends the prince. King Saul becomes jealous and threatens to kill David. King Saul is killed in battle, and David becomes king. David was not in the battle with him. He was fighting the Philistines when he died. He danced in front of the ark in the presence of God. He kills Bathsheba's husband and marries her. He has many wives and is a terrible father. But in all of that, he is the forefather of the Redeemer of Jesus Christ and the greatest king of Israel that ever lived. So last left off, we were discussing Abraham, his son Isaac, Jacob, Judah, Perez, Hezron, Ram, Amminadab, Nahshon, Solomon, Boaz, Obed, and Jesse, the father of David. And now we're talking about David. The source scriptures will be First Chronicles, First Kings, First and Second Samuel's, the book of Psalm 34, and Genesis. Our timeline now, we started here to your left. Okay. Here to your left, where you see Abraham, And Adam, now we're here with David. There is a yellow film where we are right now. We know that God made promises, God made expectations. He gave Moses the law. God established priesthood. God built the tabernacle, and that hasn't happened yet in our story. God unites Israel. That was done by Saul. And then we'll conclude the story of David. And we'll talk a little bit about Solomon, his son, the temple being built, the kingdom dividing, and that will lead us to God and his son Jesus Christ, the prophecy. But for the lesson on David, we're going to stop around here, this point, a little after 1952. The judges will be no more. He is the last patriarch, as you can see. The prophets become more prominent during the time of David and after David and before. So we also have the priesthood that was established, and it begins to fade out towards the end of David. So we are now in David, and we're moving forward towards Jesus Christ. So there's two more periods, but there is no patriarch, and there is the intertestamental period where there is silence. But for now, we have left Adam, Abraham, and we're historically in the time of David. Hey, right, yes, Douglas.
Oh, I'm looking at your chart, and it appears that the period of the judges ended at 1052, not 1952. Just a couple of years before I was born. Answer the phone. Answer the phone.
Did you say that again?
I think you said 1952, which is a couple of years before I was born, but I'm looking at it and it says 1052. So
I'm sorry, it's 1052 before
okay.
Christ. Yeah, before Jesus was even born.
Okay, so I missed the
Sorry
word.
about that. 1052. And that is the time it is believed that Samuel died, and Samuel was the last judge. So that marked the end of the period of judges. And if we can get this thing off the front of the screen, give me just a moment. Okay, here we go. Oh, it's back there again. Other main characters. I can get rid of this thing. Oh, well, we'll just have to live with it for a minute. So we're going to talk about the priesthood. Now I'm going to try to get rid of this thing off my screen. It won't go away. Oh, well. I don't know what happened there. So we have the priesthood of Samuel and the judges of Israel. He was a prophet, a priest, and a judge. I'm going to talk about him and Saul just a little bit so that we can better understand the story where I pick it up at. Now, the tribe of Ephraim is where Samuel is from. His mother was named Hannah. You may remember from the homework, we studied her prayer along with Moses' prayer, and we talked a little bit about the continuity between Anna and Mary's prayer. And she dedicated Samuel and put him before the Lord because she promised if God gave her a son, she would return him back. So when Samuel was around 9 years of age, she sent him to the temple and gave him to Eli to become a priest and for training. God called him at a very young age, and you can read his story in 1 Samuel's 3rd chapter. He became God's prophet, he became a priest and a judge. I'm still trying to figure out the mysteries of this circle on my screen. It is not going away.
There's an eraser somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think I'll have to use that. Thank you, Douglas. There you go. You're too smart. All right. Okay. So, his priestly functions, he offered sacrifices and he interceded for the people. He led a national repentance and a spiritual renewal because Eli and his sons, predominantly his sons, were very corrupt. They extorted money from the people, they stole from the temple. Eli never held them responsible for those things, and there was corruption in the priesthood. So God separated Samuel and his ministry and actually killed Eli and his sons for that. And Samuel was responsible for bringing honesty, morality, integrity, and faith back into the priesthood. And he was anointed king. He anointed Saul and David as king. And he was actually a judge, just like Deborah, Samson, and others. He was an official judge of the people. The differences from traditional priesthood. Samuel was not a direct descendant of Aaron. And we talked about this yesterday in our Bible class. For those of you who attended, Aaron and all of his descendants were the high priest over all the other Levitical priests. And Samuel was not from that line, but God made him a high priest just the same. And he is from the line of Levi and Ephraim, and he is the son of Kohath, and his father's line can be found in First Chronicles 6 chapter 3rd to the 15th verse. He functioned outside of the corrupt temple system under Eli's son, and he acted as a bridge between the priesthood and prophetic leadership. And as a side note, the bloodline was important, and it was important because it showed the precision of God. It showed fulfillment of the prophecies, his commitment to the covenants, and made nothing he does arbitrary. He is perfect and knows what he is doing. And Levi's son Kohath, which was Samuel was a descendant of, is the father of Korah, and his sons are credited with writing a good portion of the biblical Psalms. He restored spiritual integrity. He led Israel through the transition from judges to monarchy because Saul was a king, not a judge. He maintained holiness and deep relationships with God, and he founded a prophetic schools and mentored future leaders. So let's talk a little bit about King Saul. He was from the tribe of Benjamin. He was the son of Kish, a wealthy Benjamite. He was tall, handsome, and humble at first. He was anointed by Samuel and ruled a divided and unstable kingdom. He reigned, as we said, until approximately 1052. He unified all the tribes of Israel, and he conquered the Amalekites, but he disobeyed God by not killing the king and taking the spoils. He frequently battled the Philistines. And if you look at the map here, if the map decides to work, you can see that Melech, which was a descendant of Ishmael, he bordered the Holy Lands. He actually conquered them, so he had complete protection there. He was always holding the Philistines in abeyance to protect his border, and then all the other lands around him as well. And so that included the eastern and southern neighborhoods of Israel, the Moabites, the Edomites, the Ammonites, and we know from last week the Moabites were from the descendants of Lot. We know that the Ammonites are descendants of Lot, and the Edomites are descendants of Ishmael and Esau. Saul fought and subdued some of these groups during his reign, and he did a good job, I think, of securing the borders. And he fought against the king of Zohab, which is Armenian, from the line of Shem, the son of Noah, who received the blessing. And he is at the top, the far north. And so Saul had an enormous responsibility of protecting and maintaining the Holy Lands. He had some faults. One, he was impatient. There was a military crisis at Gilgal. Saul was outnumbered by the Philistines. They had more chariots, more men. But Samuel told him to wait 7 days, and God will make he was victorious. Where Samuel got impatient, Samuel wasn't patient. And so he did his own sacrificial offering to God instead of allowing the he did his own sacrifice to God instead of allowing Saul to do the sacrifice, which is a big no-no. And God did not appreciate that. And Samuel was displeasing in his act to God. He disobeyed God in the battle against the Amalekites, where God told him to kill everything, everybody, take no spoils, where he spared the king, which created issues for Esther. If you ever read the book of Esther, Hammer, the Amalekite, was the one who almost overthrew and got all the Jews killed within Asia. So he was rejected by God. He was rejected by God through Samuel. And he was very jealous of David, God's anointed one. And he consulted a medium in fear. And that was one of the things Proverbs spoke against. And he had his own laws and decrees against, but he went and spoke to a soothsayer, fortune teller. He died in battle against the Philistines. He fell on his sword, and his sons, including Jonathan, died, and David succeeded him as king. The Jewish historian Josephus, writing in the first century AD, states that his antiquities of the Jews that Saul reigned 18 years while Samuel was alive and 22 years after Samuel's death. This adds up to a total of 40 years for Saul's reign. Okay, what is the spiritual lesson here before we move forward? Partial obedience is still disobedience. You're either obeying God or you're not obeying God. There's no middle compromise in our faith and in exercising what God tells us. True leadership requires humility, and above all, it requires faith. Saul lost faith. God values the heart over outward strength. And Saul's downfall is a warning against pride and compromise. Our faith must be humble and yet uncompromising. Remember that in all that you do. So this is the end of the characterization of the two main characters aside from David. So I will now start the story of David. Okay, the sons of Samuel, just like the sons of Eli. Doug raised his hand again. Go ahead.
I like to say that disobedience is always followed by failure. Always.
Mhm. And so the sons of Samuel, the priests and prophets of God, did not follow the way of the Lord. Samuel's two sons were named Joel and Abijah. He appointed them to be leaders of secession. The elders rejected them. They wanted a king to lead them, such as all the other nations have. God chose Saul to be king, but warned the people that they would not be happy with the outcome because now they're telling God what the people need, not listening to God telling them what he wants them to have, because what God wants is what's best for us. So Samuel the priest and the prophet of God anointed Saul as king. He sinned and was a weak king, and God selected another king for all the reasons that I just mentioned. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I'm sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem."